If you've joined in with the raspberry grow along and you've started planting your canes or your raspberry bushes at the beginning of the year, then the chances are that you actually have some berries that are either starting to form or are pretty much ripe at this point. While the canes might not necessarily be very big yet, they hopefully will be producing some berries for us. So my autumn berries are starting to ripen, and those canes are still about a foot to a foot and a half, maybe even 2 feet, and they are putting out lots of side shoots, which is perfect for what we want at this point in the year. And then the summer bush that we planted together, which was the yummy variety, are just starting to form their flowers and their berries, but they haven't yet ripened. This is a little bit later than what you'd usually expect them to do in following years, but as the plants just start to establish, this is completely normal and something that we'd expect. So these are the two yummy bushes that we planted up together, and you can see there's a real contrast between this bush and this bush over here. And there is nothing that has happened any different between these two plants. I haven't fed one more than the other or anything like that. They're in exactly the same soil. So it does just seem to be that the plant over there is a little bit weaker and struggling a bit more than this one, which is really thriving. I'm not too concerned about it at this stage. I'm expecting that one to probably catch up next year. It is sending out lots of new shoots, which would suggest it will have fruit next year as well. But for this year, it's not really going to have much done to it except for a little bit of pruning on some of those old canes. And then this one you can really see is looking really healthy, and it's putting up lots of new canes, and then it's also got some fruit on it as well back here, and lots of flowers that are starting to come. Now this one has started flowering and fruiting, I am offering it a liquid feed just to boost it while it goes through its more demanding part of growing. And at the moment it's really bushy, so I'm not actually going to trim anything back on this one. We're going to wait for the fruit to finish, and then as we harvest the fruit off of each of the canes, those canes will be taken back down to soil level, but we will have a look at that when I do that. For now, we're just going to have a look at the other one. For this one, you can see that there's some old canes that are not doing anything. So those are the ones that I'm currently going to take out. So I've just got some secateurs, and I'm going to take those ones right down to ground level. These can be composted absolutely fine. There's one that's obviously come out previously, and then you can see here I got a little bit of what looks like a little bit of leaf burn. There is actually a tiny bud just on the top here, but what we can also see is lots of new growth coming down below, so that's really positive and that's what we're looking for. I'm also going to just weed these ones here. So there we go, that's that one all weeded and these canes removed, and that is all I'm going to do at this stage for this one. Any that do actually fruit this year, we will remove them exactly the same as we will in the other one. If you have summer raspberries that are already established, then after they have produced their fruit, that is the particular cane that we're looking to remove. So you just want to follow the cane down and remove it down at soil level and leave any new canes. So then these ones here are my autumn varieties. So the summer variety is Yummy, and these ones are a variety called All Gold. These were popped in a little bit later than ideal, so they were put in right at the beginning of April rather than by March. You can see down on this particular bush that I have a net on this, so because they're so low to the ground, we're having more attention from blackbirds, and also the dog is helping himself to some as well, so we just wanted to make sure that we can get a few ourselves this year. So although raspberries can self-pollinate, we are really going to be looking for them to be open and in netting that is open enough for bugs to be able to get into them, because if they've been pollinated by bugs, then they're going to have a bigger size fruit and also a more consistent fruit as well, so you won't have any areas where there's a patch that hasn't been pollinated correctly. So what we should be able to see is the initial cane that we planted, so that will be the darker one in the middle here, and then at the bottom we've got other canes that are now being put up from the ground. So this is something that will also spread, and they will end up being in different areas, so you'll have to keep on top of that. But right now that is exactly how we want these bushes to put out new growth for us. Before the berries are ripe, what you'll see is these little petals or leaves that are at the bottom of the berries will be very tight to them, and that's one of the indications that we look for to see whether or not they're ready to pull off. So once they start to move backwards, then it should be very easy just to release that berry. This one's probably been on here a little bit too long. Not overly happy. We can see the centre has gone a little bit brown, and then the inside of this berry isn't looking great either, so I shall just leave that one for the birds. That can be caused by a little bit too much water rather than anything else, but this one is looking fine. Once the berries come off of the bush, we can pop them into a jar and into the fridge. This is unwashed. We'll have a look at this in a bit more detail next year when we actually have enough to store. At the moment, if you've planted them at the same time as we have, then it's just going to be a few coming in as and when. We're not going to want to store them or freeze them, particularly at this point. So the trimming for these this year is going to be a little bit different compared to other years because they aren't actually mature yet. However, if you do have more mature summer berries particularly, then it is time to start trimming them back as soon as they have actually finished producing fruit for you. And it is just those canes. Don't forget, you don't want to take them all back like we do our autumn varieties, because that is going to stop you having any fruit next year. So our summer cropping berries are actually ones that produce on next year's canes, hence that we don't want to actually remove any new canes, and then our autumn varieties produce on the same year's cane. So that's why we can actually trim them all at the same time. If you want to join in with this grow along and you don't want to wait for the bare root varieties to come in and be ready for when everything's dormant, then you can look at potted varieties and get them into the ground. You're still going to want to check out the first video where we go over lots of information of how to prepare the ground to make sure that these are thriving. They are at the end of the day perennials, so we want to make sure that we give them the best start and that they last years for us.